Hi, everybody. I am Jack Bosley with the Digital Innovation Team, and this afternoon we have Kara and Kelsey who are going to be talking about working with aggressive kids. And so, thanks for joining us. We've got several of my teammates who are in the chat, so please pop over there and introduce yourself and let us know if you have any questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kara and Kelsey. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. So before we begin, we wanted to just take a moment just to introduce ourselves and share just some of our professional experiences with you. So my name is Kara Batchelor. I am MHP at Home of the Innocents. I've been there for just about a year, but prior to that, I've also had 2 years working in child protective services, about 2.5 as a clinical therapist at a mental health hospital. And then I spent about 7 years at an alternative high school as a school social worker.
And I am I am also an MHP for state agency schools. And I actually just started with JCPS in February. And I got to get in about 3 weeks before we went to NTI. So it's been an adventure. But before I started with JCPS, I worked for Child Protective Services for the state of Kentucky, and then transitioned into being a therapist for children in foster care, and then after that, families with an open CPS case. So Kara and I are hoping to be able to use some of our experience and just expertise with this population to give some tips and knowledge that you may not have or may not have had to use before now. So to start off with, we actually wanted to give the DSM-5 criteria for diagnosing oppositional defiance disorder. And the reason why we wanted to do this is because the DSM is the standard classification of mental health disorders used by mental health professionals in the United States. So across the country, this is kind of, our Bible for making sure that we're giving the correct diagnosis, make sure that everyone, is getting the proper treatment and correct medication if that's needed, as well as avoiding overdiagnosing for various disorders. Unfortunately, there still is a lot of stigma attached to a lot of different mental health disorders, including oppositional defiant disorder, and we don't want stigma negative connotations following kids throughout their whole career unnecessarily. So the diagnostic criteria within the DSM-5 for oppositional defiant disorder is a pattern of angry and irritable mood, argumentative behavior lasting at least months, as evidenced by at least 4 symptoms from the following categories exhibited during interaction with at least one individual who's not a sibling. And we're going to look at those 4 symptoms here in just a second on the next slide. But what Kara and I really wanted to point out on this slide is the importance of having been occurring for at least months. Obviously, the 4 symptoms that we're going to look at next slide gotta happen with at least one individual not a sibling.
Kelsey, let me just interrupt real quick. Kara, can you mute your mic? And it sounds a little strange.
Mute it if I'm presenting.
If you just hover over the Hangout, you'll see 3 icons. Not there. You need to go further down. The mic and the video. Nope.
I don't have those.
Go back to your Hangout tab. Yep, there you go. Perfect. Sorry to interrupt, Kelsey.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. And Kara, the slides aren't showing for me now for some reason. I wonder if we can get them pulled back up.
Kara, you'll have to go back to your slide tab now instead of the Hangout. Just go ahead and share your screen again. Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you guys. I messed up your flow. There you go.
No, that's okay.
Looks
we
good.
We can hop back on it, no problem.
Yep, you guys look good. Thank you.
All right, so the slide's showing up for everybody else because I'm still not seeing them for some reason. I wonder. Oh, goodness.
I see them, Kelsey.
Let me see if I can pull them up myself so that I've got access to them in front of me. Sorry, guys.
For those of you joining us, thanks for being with us. We'll get this situated here in just a minute.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, goodness. I'm not being able to.
I can help you out while you're looking. Just let me know whenever you're ready.
I can see them now that you just, whatever you just.
All right, let's keep on going then. Thanks, you all.
All right, so sorry about that, guys. So we're going to move into the criteria where we need to be seeing at least 4 symptoms. So you've got 3 different categories. I'm going to go through this quick since we lost a couple minutes there. But we've got, angry and irritable mood, which could consist of a child who often loses their temper, is often touchy or easily annoyed, is often angry and resentful. We also have a category of argumentative and defiant behavior, where a kid could be, often arguing with authority figures, or really in our case with the students we work with, just with adults in general. We see often actively defying or refusing to comply with requests from authority figures or with rules, often deliberately annoying others, and often blaming others for his or her mistakes or misbehaviors. And then the last category we have is just vindictiveness. So a student who displays oppositional defiant disorder may be of that personality type where they're just not going to let things go. They're going to feel very strongly about getting even if they feel like they've been wronged in some way. So again, you just need 4 symptoms from any of these categories. All right, and we wanted to touch just really quick again on the importance of understanding normal developmental choices as opposed to a student with oppositional defiant disorder. Because sometimes it is a part of normal development for students, kids, adolescents to display periods of oppositional and defiant behavior. And I wanted to touch on real quick just cognitive development in general. And this is going to be very quickly, by no means an in-depth review of this, but our brains form from our brain stem, which is where all of our survival mechanisms are, to the frontal lobe. And our frontal lobe is where we see, our ability to make logical and rational decisions, have behaviors that are in line with our long-term goals, all of those types of things. And that does not fully develop until we're about in our mid-20s. So a lot of our kiddos just don't have the capability of making, those rational and logical decisions, which can make them more prone to displaying oppositional and defiant behavior. So it can be very normal. Oppositional defiant disorder also includes, like we said, a very frequent pattern of being angry, irritable, defiant, and vindictive. So this is not going to be something that, happens every once in a while or, happens just after something major happens throughout the day, and the kid reacts badly. This is something that is going to occur very frequently, very often over the course of at least 6 months. Youth struggling with ODD typically do not see a problem with their behavior and instead shift blame onto other people. They're not going to be, willing to accept responsibility. And behaviors indicating ODD will lead to a significant disruption in these overall ability to function. So this has to be causing significant problems in at least one area. Typically, we're going to see it at school because that's where we are with them. All right. And just again, quickly, the trauma response behind defiance. We wanted to include this on here to give some framework around the fact that this type of behavior, it's not personal, even though it can feel very, very personal when a kid is reacting in certain types of way towards you. But, behind these behaviors, there's a need present. And we'll kind of go through that quickly with these 4 different types of trauma responses. But this is a good place to see where our behavioral intervention plans can come in handy, because those are looking at what's the function behind the behavior. What is a student trying to avoid? What are they trying to communicate? What are they trying to obtain? And here we see our 4 types of trauma response, which are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Our fight is going to look more like that really in your face aggressive behavior, physical or verbal. Kiddo might be really argumentative. And this is typically stemming from a belief that power and control is going to create the safety that they feel they're lacking. The flight response could literally be, a kid running away, or it could be that more obsessive compulsive type of behavior or the hyperactivity that we see sometimes. And this is stemming from a belief that perfection creates safety. So they'll either be, really into overdoing things, trying to be perfect, or they might completely avoid in order to kind of take themselves outside of a situation they don't think they can perform perfectly in. Freeze is going to look more like dissociation. So a kid who is there but is just not there, kind of that glazed over, their brain somewhere else. Or it could even be like a kid who sleeps, on an ongoing basis every day. And this is going to come from the belief that solitude creates the safety that they're seeking. Fawning is going to be more of those codependent behaviors, overly eager to please, and a lack of boundaries. And this is going to stem from the belief that keeping others happy creates safety. So again, this is all about a need to create a safe environment for these students. That is why they are, behaving in this way. And a lot of times with this particular population, we're going to be either seeing that fight or flight response. Not so much the freeze or fawn, but we thought it was important to go over all of them. And another last little piece is just anxiety attacks can sometimes look like aggression in kids and adolescents. It might not look like you're, having trouble breathing, things like that, like you've seen on TV or even in yourself or someone else. It could literally look like aggression when a kid is having a panic attack. And if you want more information on this, because I know this is quick, feel free to reach out to either, your school MHP or Kara and I. We're more than happy to give more information and resources. All right. And just another quick little refresher on the trauma piece. We're all working really hard every single day to try and provide a trauma-informed environment for the kids that we work with. And obviously, the overall goal of this is to promote an environment of healing and recovery to be able to meet the needs that our kids have, whether it's feeling safe or, what have you. And the components of this is going to be, a safe environment, creating relationships, healthy relationships, and connectedness between students and staff, students and other students, and supporting and teaching emotional regulation. We want to be maintaining an attitude of what happened rather than what's wrong with you. And, I've even had success in if a kid is in the middle of a, fight or flight response or any type of trauma response, if I just say, what happened, sometimes that brings those defenses down a little bit. And, one of the best ways to be able to do all of this and create the trauma-informed environment is to be aware of our own stuff. Sarah and I were talking about, I think when she teaches it to students, she calls it more upstairs, downstairs brain. I've always called it our wizard and lizard brain, but it's the same concept. And it's where our upstairs brain is more where we are calm and able to make the logical, rational decisions that make sense, right? And our downstairs or our lizard brain is where we are in a trauma response. We are fighting, we are fleeing, we're freezing, or we're fawning, right? So we have to make sure that we're using our upstairs or our wizard brain so that we can help the kids get out of that downstairs lizard brain and into their upstairs wizard brain, if that makes sense. And if you're feeling confused about any of this or want more information on it, I know there are a lot of trainings through JCPS that you can attend. I believe that MHPs in August or sometime this fall are going to be presenting their schools on trauma-informed care. And again, reach out to Kara and I if you want to. We are more than happy again to share information. All right. And I wanted to include Maslow's hierarchy of needs in here because I find it to be very helpful when I'm looking at trauma and how it impacts a child's overall ability to do the things that we expect from them in a school setting. And most of you have probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but not a lot of people know the full scope of what it is. So, what it is a motivational theory in psychology made up of a 5-tiered model of human needs. And this goes from the bottom up. So, you see the bottom of the pyramid there, and we've got to meet those needs that are at the bottom before we can go up and let the higher level needs take precedence. So first we see our physiological needs, which is basic survival needs. So having enough food, having enough water, being able to breathe, sleeping, etc. Next, we can move up to safety once those needs are met. This is where we have security of our bodies, resources, health, knowing that our family is safe. It's just the overall sense that you are safe and that everything's going to be okay. After that's met, you can move up into love and belonging, which is where our relationships and connectedness come in, and that sense of belonging. Next is esteem, which is where our sense of self esteem is, being able to feeling like we can accomplish things, feeling like we have that level of mastery needed to step outside of our comfort zone, being confident, and learning how to respect ourselves and other people as well. After that, we can move up into self actualization once all of these other needs have been met. And this is where, we're able to get into problem solving and having a lack of prejudice about people, accepting facts, our morality, creativity, all of those higher functioning needs that we have. And this is the overall process of growing and developing as a person in order to achieve our individual potential. This highest level is where we're able to really integrate and utilize things that we're taught. So when we're looking at this in terms of our students who might be displaying these, really aggressive and defiant behaviors, they're clearly not up there at the top, right? They're probably not even halfway. They might be sitting down at best at safety because by displaying this on a regular basis, they're saying that they don't feel safe. So they haven't met those needs. We have to help them meet those bottom level needs before they can get up to the point where they can start integrating things that we're teaching them and utilizing them every day in school. And keep in mind that this is fluid. Right now with this pandemic that's going on, even some of us as staff have been knocked down a few pegs because, you may have a spouse or, family members who have lost jobs, things like that, and that can knock us down into feeling unsafe and sometimes being stuck in those safety levels. So just check in with yourself and know where you're at as well.
So, in working with defiant kids, we need to really work to try to be proactive whenever we can. So, that's going to look like modeling behaviors or any type of boundaries that you are expecting from your students. So, really be thinking about what types of behaviors do we promote in our classrooms and what do we tolerate. Remember that whatever we're tolerating, we are encouraging the students to continue. Be thinking about what your internal biases may be. So, what do you bring with you to the classroom or to your conversations with your kids? We should be sure to set kids up for success with small or any type of manageable jobs to promote responsibility and any kind of opportunity for praise for that child, because oftentimes that can be very limited in their experiences. We should work to recognize triggers in our students. So they can either be known or unknown to the students as well as to us. They might be something so specific as maybe a smell. It might remind them of some traumatic experience that they've been through in the past. Really important not to assume that you know what's triggered them, though. And I would definitely encourage you after the fact to ask, even if you think you might know. It's a good opportunity for you and that student to kind of form a bond and identify patterns and things like that. So remember, the child has a past that we oftentimes don't really know very much about, and they've built up defense mechanisms in order to kind of survive in the past. They've worked for them in some way. So if pushing an adult away in the past has been successful, that's going to be their go-to, and they can be really skilled at it. Always be mindful of space and control in the classroom. And anytime you can, plant seeds and model appropriate behavior. As Kelsey said before, it's really important to let go of your ego and remember that we're really all doing our best, including the kids. And that's going to look different on different days, and that's okay. In working with defiant kids, it's important to acknowledge and validate the child's emotions first and foremost. So the child may be feeling a loss of control or anxiety, or as Kelsey said earlier, might be exhibiting a traumatic response. So it's important to think about what, again, they're trying to communicate to you. So what is the payoff? Why has this worked for the student in the past, or why are they trying it now? We should, again, help them to identify and understand what the trigger was. And then be mindful of their feelings and any challenges, as well as any changes in routine, because those can really throw kids off. Changes in routine could include if you know that a substitute is going to be coming into your classroom, if you know that there's going to be a fire drill, or any other changes that can kind of vary throughout their normal schedule. When possible, we should be proactive in recognizing and disrupting a child's anger escalation cycle. So, again, if you see those first kind of telltale signs that you know that a child is escalating, it's really important to use a calm, even tone, reassure the child when you can, but really avoid over talking. We don't want to make the situation any harder or worse for the child. And remember, if they're responding negatively to any of your verbal efforts, that could further escalate the situation. So you just kind of need to take the student's lead. We should engage in positive reinforcement whenever possible. So it's important to recognize that positive reinforcement does not mean allowing the child to simply do whatever they want, but it's really being intentional about meaningful incentives for positive behaviors. When managing defiant behaviors, we have a few tips that we wanted to identify. So these might seem very, very obvious, but in the heat of the moment, it's really important to really recognize how you're feeling, be aware of that, and as well as telling the child and teaching him or her to be aware of those things as well. First and foremost, avoid yelling in power struggles. Just really think about if you were in that child's position as an adult, if you are in a meeting and your boss ends up berating you or calling you out in front of your peers, that can be really embarrassing and very degrading. And we want to make sure that we are avoiding that at all costs, because that can be really damaging to that relationship with that child. We want to try to stay calm. Make sure that the child knows that we are in control of our actions and our feelings, and model what that behavior looks like. We should be setting limits and parameters, but avoid trying to control too much, because that's really that can be really damaging to the child, who may again just try to rebel against that. We should use a neutral and calm voice and avoid using any type of sarcasm, which really is not going to be helpful in that situation anyways. And then we should follow up on identified consequences. So recognize that positive consequences are just as important as negative ones, and can seemingly really be almost more important at times. Follow through is most important, even when it's a situation that might make your day or your class period harder. We want to make sure that that child knows that we are able to follow up and be a person of our word, so that they can count on us and work towards managing that relationship and helping them with their behaviors. So in response to defiance, it's important to be mindful of your own defense mechanisms as well as, again, the child's. Remember the limitations on a child's control. So throughout the school day, they have very limited control. Things like when they go to the bathroom, when and how they get their energy out, and how often they're able to socialize with their friends, or when. Those are not things that they're able to necessarily make choices of. So we need to recognize that control whenever we can. So in working with these kids, it's important that we provide clear and concise choices, but make sure that whatever the choices are presented, make sure that you can live with whichever they choose, whichever the option is, and avoid punitive responses. This isn't about, punishing a child or making anything worse. It's not about blaming them, and it's not about anything that's not going to ultimately make your relationship and both of your lives easier. So it's important to recognize, is your response, is it meaningful? Is it effective? Is this something that is going to ultimately help to build whatever skills that child has? And really, really work to, again, make sure that you recognize and almost catch the student doing good and making positive choices, and provide that positive feedback to encourage that desired behavior. Again, really, really important, and make sure that you're doing that on a very consistent basis, almost overly so, just to kind of make that student recognize that you see them. So in debriefing in after defiance, it's important to kind of take a couple of steps. So make sure that the student is able to recognize his or her perception of the event. So how did it feel? Did they feel calm or did they feel chaos? What was their role? And we might need to help them in accepting that responsibility a little bit, as well as others' roles in the incident, what they want from others, and then how to resolve a similar conflict in the future so that, again, we can work towards a more calm environment where we're able to reach that compliance. In looking forward, it's important to be prepared for challenges. So it will get harder before it gets easier. Don't get discouraged. You got this. Stay consistent. Make sure to communicate with any other treatment partners, family, community members, anything like that, to encourage consistent communication and responses to defiance. We want to make sure that we're using the same language, things like, how can I help you now? Or what do you need? Staying in the present. And then remind students that while you don't approve of their behavior, you do accept and care about them as a person. Make sure to be taking care of yourself. So making sure all your needs are being met: emotional, practical and professional, physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And make sure that you recognize that self-care is going to be different for everyone. Make sure you understand your triggers and your own cycle of behavior and be intentional and proactive so that you can really show up for these kids. We wanted to put a slide on here as well about cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are any type of negative thought patterns. They can be irrational, any type of belief that differs from reality. I have a few examples here that can be really, really difficult to kind of overcome. But once you realize that you're going through them, it's important to learn about them so that you can, again, really be there for that child and show up in a way that they are going to continue to trust you, and they know that you're going to be able to continue working through these difficult times with them. We want to include a list of references on here as well. So this presentation is linked to our names on the web page. So if you have any questions, certainly feel free to look at these references. And then also definitely make sure that if there's anything that we've said that wasn't clear to you, or if you want to learn a little bit more, we have our emails on here and would definitely encourage you to reach out to one of us or to your MHP in your school so that we can continue to, again, promote a calm and compliant environment whenever we can.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Yep,
Yes, we'll be back on Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. right, so if you are just now joining us, my name is Sade Graves, and I'm Digital Innovation Leader for Zone 1 Schools, and I'm joined by Heather Worrell and three awesome principals. We have Faith Stroud from Stewart Middle School, Willie Foster, and who was our last one? Jack Jacobs. I was right. I was going to say that, but then I stopped talking. Okay, so I'm excited for this new session this week. Let's hear from our wonderful principals.
Yeah, so Sade, we're super excited to feature three rockstar digital leaders in our district. And I just want to I know last week was like Principal Celebration Week, so I just want to that our students are able to innovate and create with technology in our schools. And we know that in order for this to happen, the likelihood of this to happen, for them to have access to innovate, we have to get our district leaders and our principals leveraging digital tools and leading by example. After that, the teachers will have more exposure to digital tools through their leadership, and the likelihood that they'll integrate it into the classrooms is far greater. So we have today, let me stop screen sharing. We have today three principals, actually let me show this first, who do just that. They are exemplars, not only in JCPS, but in the state of Kentucky, in how they leverage digital tools from their seat, in the principal's seat, to lead their schools. And so we have an elementary, middle, and high school principal that we are very excited to have share today. Jack Jacobs from Bloom, Faith Stroud from Stewart, and Willie Foster from Mail. And then you'll see throughout the week at 11 o'clock, we are featuring several other really strong digital leaders who have done an outstanding job leading their schools during NTI. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over. Hey, Jack, let's start with you.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing awesome.
So, thanks for having me. We started right before NTI became like super public, out in the open. We got this feeling, and so the first thing I did was look at the teams that we had. The biggest hurdle for me mentally was what I was going to do with staff that really didn't even have a job anymore. So that was a lot of our classified staff. So we tackled that first. So we have, we call them outreach friends. So we have an outreach team, and then we have a teaching and learning team. And then I'm the technology team. I tried to pull teachers in, but they had the one teacher I wanted to pull in and help me has like a baby, I think a second grader and like a fourth grader. And I'm like, oh no, and so I was excited to have that teacher help me. And then I was like, why don't you just, you stay, and so I've been able to do all this, but it's been really fun. For me, this is my cup of tea. And I really think it's been a good distraction for me. I'm here at the house, and I need a distraction, so I'm really okay jumping in. So, and just ask me any questions and I can answer them. But overall, we started with teams and then built the technology part after the teams.
And technology is a huge part of you have like your selected success skill, Jack, where your kids have to demonstrate technology anyway. So, talk about how that kind of supported your NTI strategy.
So I used to be in the computer lab when I was back in the classroom for 3 or 4 years. I did STLP, all the good stuff. Like I said, that's my cup of tea. I think my principal growth plan is on me developing online learning systems, which we call Bloom Door, and that is our signature success skill. And so we call it a digital game changer.